Hey, good day. So here's a class I've been meaning to record, and this is regarding what occurs when this is to be used, I want to make this clear, when you are representing the seller, right? And there's a concern that the buyer is asking for some closing costs, and they have enhanced the purchase price above what they normally would offer to get the seller to contribute towards closing costs. Well, that's all fine, but sometimes, and rightfully so, sellers are concerned that that enhanced price may cause the property not to appraise, and it really is no fault of the seller that the buyers are trying to incorporate their closing costs into the deal. So this would protect the seller in that range between their actual net sale price and the sale price listed in the contract that would allow the property to remain under contract, and the buyer is agreeing up front to reduce the amount of the closing cost contribution commensurate with the difference in the appraised value and the purchase price. So sounds odd. By the way, you'll see a couple different colors here. This black coloring will be in our clause section of form simplicity, so you can reference that. Again, you want to use this when you represent the seller. This is a seller protective clause, not something that would protect the buyer. So you'd only want to use it really when you're representing the seller. All right. It says, let's read it. Should the appraised value of the property fall between the net sale price, which is the sale price minus seller contributions, and blank, the actual purchase price, then buyer and seller agree that this contract shall remain in effect and agree to add the following terms to ensure actual net sale price to the seller will remain unchanged. Number one, they agree to reduce the purchase price to equal that of the appraised value. Now, some people say, well, the seller's agreeing to do that. Yes, but hold on. Likewise, reduce the seller contribution toward the buyer's closing costs, seller concessions, by an amount equal to the difference between the original purchase price and the appraised value. I'm going to give you an example here in a minute that's going to make this very clear. Or three, should the property appraise for an amount less than the original net sale price to seller, then all parties retain their original rights under the contract. All that's great, and that verbiage is there, but here's how this might look. Here's an example. Let's say that we had agreed upon purchase price of $200,000 with the seller contributing $5,000 toward buyer's closing costs. Here's the way that verbiage would look. Should the appraised value of the property fall between $195,000, which is $200,000 minus $5,000, often called the net sale price. So in between $195,000 and $200,000, the actual purchase price or sale price, then buyer and seller agree that this contract shall remain in effect and agree to add the following terms to ensure actual net sale price to the seller will remain unchanged. And it lists those three items. So down in red, let's take a look at let's real world. Now we've got that incorporated. And let's say the appraisal comes in at $197,000. Well, if you notice, 197 falls in between 195 and 200. So that means these items are going to kick in, number 1 and 2. This means that all parties have agreed in advance to lower the purchase price to $197,000. That's what section 1 up here says. And now the seller contribution to the buyer's closing costs will now only be $2,000 as opposed to $5,000 where it was before, but will remain under contract. Notice 200 minus 5,000 is 195,000. Notice 197,000 minus 2,000 is 195,000. You wouldn't put this part in the contract. This is what you'd put in the contract, right? But it's covering every range in there between 195 and 200. And by the way, it could be 400,000 with 10,000 in closing costs. So you'd have 390 and 400 up here. It can vary. Finally, in our example, if the property appraises for $194,999, technically 99 cents, or less, then Section 3 of the agreement shall prevail, meaning that nobody's obligated to lower the price, and we'll have to go back to the original contract and renegotiate, or everybody retains their rights to cancel, and so on and so forth. Once again, this is a way for the seller to protect themselves when the buyer is enhancing the purchase price to cover closing costs, and the seller and listing agent may be concerned about that enhanced purchase price causing a problem with the appraisal. This is covering this on the front side. As always, look over this, read over it, make sure you're comfortable. If you do have questions, reach out. Again, look for this clause in Form Simplicity. Unfortunately, Transaction Desk does not have a clause section, but the Form Simplicity does. And I will provide a copy of this Word document below the training here as a link as well. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.